Hello everyone and welcome to today's video on Azure interview questions. Do you know friends that cloud computing has become the topmost choice among the developers in the tech community? Developers are in high demand but they are lost in the sea of courses that help them to reach their goal of becoming the Azure developer. So in order to boost your confidence, we are going to discuss Azure interview questions to make you interview ready. Watch this video till the end to know about how the questions are asked in the interview. Now before we discuss our interview questions, do not forget to hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon. So let's start with our first question. And the question is, what is Azure Cloud Service? It is a very simple question and the answer to the same question is, Azure Cloud Services is a platform as a service, for example, and it is a technology like Azure App Service which is intended to provide scalable, dependable and cost-effective apps. If I talk about the cloud service, it conveys multiple web applications in Azure, characterizing a number of parts to disseminate, such as handling and permit adaptable scaling of your applications. A cloud service comprises a minimum of one web part as well as a specialist part, each with its own particular application documents and design. The fundamental favorable position of the cloud service is the capacity to help more complex multi-level structures. So this all encompasses what is Azure Cloud Service. I hope so you got the answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. And the next question is, what is Azure Active Directory? The answer to the same question is, Azure Active Directory is a cloud-based IAM solution and directory by Microsoft. It brings together application access management, core directory service, and identity protection and turns them into a single solution. It helps employees of an organization sign in and access resources such as the external resources including Microsoft 365, the Azure portal, and big number of SaaS applications. And there are also some internal resources such as apps on a corporate network or intranet, as well as any cloud-based apps built by that organization. So basically, Azure Active Directory is intended for use by IT admins, app developers, Azure Office 365, Microsoft 365, or Dynamics CRM online subscribers. I hope so you got the answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. And the next question is, what is Azure Data Factory? This is very important question and generally it's a beginner level question which an interviewer can ask in the initial phase. So the answer to the same question is, Azure Data Factory is a serverless and cloud-based data integration service and platform used for creation of ETL and ELT pipelines. It helps in creation of data-driven workflows for planning and execution of data movements and data transformation at scale. I hope so you got the answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what is Azure Databricks? It is a very important question. An interviewer can ask this. So be prepared with this. The answer to the same question is, Azure Databricks is a data analytics platform that offers two environments for the development of data-intensive applications. First is Azure Databricks SQL Analytics and Azure Databricks Workspace. Azure Databricks integration with the security, compute, analytics, storage, and AI services that are natively provided by the cloud providers facilitate the unification of data and AI workloads. I hope so you got the answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what is Azure Data Lake? Azure Data Lake is a cloud platform that supports big data analytics through its unlimited storage for structured, semi-structured, or unstructured data of all types and sizes. This forms the perfect answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what are Azure resources? This question also comes in the beginner level and the answer to the same question is, any entity managed by Azure can be referred to an Azure resource. The following are some of the examples of Azure resources such as storage accounts, virtual networks, virtual machines, etc. I hope so you got the answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what are the roles implemented in Windows Azure? And the answer is, the roles implemented in Windows Azure are as follows. The first one is the web role. Next is the worker role. And third is the virtual machine role. If I talk about the web role, it gives a web solution that is front end. This is like an ASP.NET application, while under facilitating Azure gives an IIS and required services. If I talk about the worker role, it gives solution for background service. It can run long activities. The next is virtual machine role. This role of both web and workers are executed on machines. The virtual machine roles gives the client the capacity to modify Azure virtual machine on the web, and worker roles are running. I hope so you got the answer to this question. This is very important question, so please make a mark on this one. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what are the three principal segments of Windows Azure platform? And the answer is, Windows Azure has three principal segments. And the first one is Windows Azure Compute. Windows Azure gives a code that can be managed by hosting environment. It gives the calculation benefit through parts. Windows Azure backs three types of roles. The first one is web roles utilized for web application programming and upheld by IIS 7. The next is worker roles utilized for foundation handling of web roles. The third is virtual machine roles utilized for moving Windows Server applications to Windows Azure in simple way. Next is Windows Azure Storage. It gives four types of storage services. The first one is queues for informing between web parts and worker roles. Next we get its tables for storing the structural data. Third is the binary large objects to store content, records or vast information. And fourth one is Windows Azure Drives to mount a page blob. These can be transferred and downloaded by the means of binary large objects. Finally, we have the third one, which is the Windows Azure App Fabric. This fabric provides five services. The first one is Service Bus, Access, Caching, Integration and Composite. This forms the perfect answer to this question, and this is also one of the most important questions which can be asked by the interviewer. Now, let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, define Windows Azure App Fabric. Basically, Windows Azure Diagnostics empowers you to gather diagnostic data from an application running in Windows Azure. Diagnostic data is used for capacity planning and evaluation. I hope so. It's clear to you, and this forms the perfect answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. And the next question is, what is the difference between Windows Azure Queues and Windows Azure Bus Service? Azure Queues gives a solid, intelligent messaging within the services. They also highlight a very straightforward, REST-based get, put, peek interface, whereas bus queues are a part of more extensive Windows Azure messaging framework that supports the queuing. I hope so you got the answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what are the deployment options provided by the Azure? This is a kind of an intermediate level question, and the answer to the same question is, the deployment options provided by Azure are as follows. The first one is the staging environment. It is used to validate the changes of an application before making it live. The next is production environment. This is where the applications go live and can be accessed by target users with DNS-friendly URL. I hope so you got the answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what is Azure Blob Storage? Blob stands for Binary Large Objects. The answer to the same question is, Azure Blob Storage is an object storage solution for the cloud. It is capable of storing large unstructured data in text or binary format, and it is suitable for serving documents, media, or text to the browser directly. The data is accessible from anywhere. The blobs are grouped into containers and tied to user accounts. This service actually has three components. The first one is a storage account, which can be general storage account for the Blob storage account registered in Microsoft Azure. Next we get containers. Containers are used for grouping blobs, whereas each container can store an unlimited number of blobs. The container name should be in lowercase. And next comes the blob. A blob is a file or document of any type and size. Three kinds of blobs are supported by Azure. The first one is block blobs, which supports the text and binary files up to 195 GB. Then we have append blobs. Appends operation such as logging data in log files. And finally, we have the page blobs for frequent read or write operations. This forms the perfect answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what is the role instance in Azure? The answer to the same question is, role instance is a virtual machine where application code is run using running role configurations. Multiple instances of a role are also possible according to a definition of cloud service configuration files. I hope so you got what is exactly role instance in Azure. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what is Windows Azure Portal? And the answer to the same question is, to run application, a designer gets to the Windows Azure portal through his or her web program by logging in a Windows Live ID. The user at a point chooses whether to create a host account for running application, a storage account for storing data, or both. Once the designer has host account, he or she can utilize Windows Azure portal to submit the applications to Windows Azure. I hope so you got the idea what is exactly Windows Azure portal. It is also one of the most important questions which can be asked by the interviewer. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, explain about the hybrid cloud. And the answer to the same question is, a hybrid cloud is a blend of internal and external cloud services. A mix of private cloud joined with the utilization of public cloud services. This kind of cloud is most appropriate when you need to keep the classified information in your vicinity, which is a private cloud, and consume alternative services from the public cloud. I hope so you got an idea what exactly is hybrid cloud. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what is a storage key? And the answer is, storage keys or access keys are utilized as a validation mode for accessing the storage services account to control data based on our prerequisites. In Windows Azure, we have an alternative to give a primary access key and a secondary access key, despite the fact that we will utilize a solitary access to confirm our application to the storage. The primary reason to give the secondary access key to avoid downtime to the application. I hope so you got the answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what is Windows Azure Traffic Manager? And the answer to the same question is, Windows Azure Traffic Manager enables users to control the distribution of user traffic of installed Azure cloud services. There are three distinctive load balancing strategies provided by the Azure. The manager who works on the traffic applies a routing policy to the domain name service and the questions on your domain names and maps the DNS courses to apt instances of your application. I hope so you got the answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what is SQL Azure Database? And the answer is, SQL Azure Database is just an approach to get associated with cloud services, where you can store your database into the cloud. Microsoft Azure is the most ideal approach to utilize PaaS, where you can have different databases on similar account. I hope so you got an idea of this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. And the next question is, what is the concept of the table in Windows Azure? And the answer is, a table is a kind of Azure storage where you can store your information. Binary large objects are put in a compartment and entity on a table. Following are the key concepts in table. Table allows structured data storage. There can be 0 to n number of tables in a storage account. Tables store information as accumulation of elements. Then we have an element has an essential key and properties as a key value pair. I hope so you got the answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. And the next question is, what is conditional access in Azure? And the answer to the same question is, conditional access is used by Azure Active Directory as a tool to make decisions, bring signals together, and impose organizational policies. Through conditional access policies, one can implement the right access controls whenever required to keep the organization secure and stay out of the user's way when it is not needed. I hope so. You got the answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. Now let's discuss some of the advanced level questions. And the question is, when should you use a static IP address in Azure? And the answer to the same question is, in Azure, static IP addresses is used when the address connected to the device is not to be changed. I hope so. You got the answer to this question. It's very important question and I hope so you would take a mark on this one. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, how does Azure Site Recovery work? And the answer to the same question is, Site Recovery orchestrates and automates the replication of Azure virtual machines in different locations, on-premises machines to a secondary data center, and on-premises virtual machines and physical servers to Azure. It contributes to business continuity and disaster recovery by enabling access to apps from secondary location in case of an outage at a primary site. This forms the perfect answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. And the next question is, why should you use Azure CDN? And the answer to the same question is, Azure CDN reduces the bandwidth and load time. It also helps speed up the responsiveness. That's why we should use the Azure CDN. This forms the perfect answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. And the next question is, explain the benefits of Traffic Manager. This is also one of the most important questions, so please take your mark on this one. The answer to the same question is, Azure Traffic Manager has the following benefits. The first one is, it has optimized performance. Then, there is no downtime during the update or maintenance process. And finally, we have easy configurable on Windows Azure portal. I hope so you got your answer of this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. And the next question is, what is Azure App Service? And the answer to the same question is, Azure App Service is a completely managed platform as a service, offering for proficient developers that conveys a rich arrangement of abilities to web, mobile, and integration scenarios. Mobile apps in Azure App Service offer a very adaptable, universally accessible mobile application development platform for enterprise developers and system integrators that conveys a rich set of capacities to the mobile engineers. I hope so you got the answer to this question. This is also one of the most important questions, so please take your mark on this one. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. And the next question is, what is profiling in Azure? And the answer to the same question is, profiling is only a procedure for measuring the performance analysis of the application. It is normally done to guarantee that the application is sufficiently steady and can maintain the overwhelming traffic. Visual Studio gives us different tools to do it by gathering the performance information for application that likewise helps in troubleshooting issues. Once the profiling wizard is run, it sets up the execution sessions and collects the data of the sample. The profiling reports help in deciding the longest running strategies inside the application, measuring the execution time of every strategy in the call stack, and finally assessing the memory allocation. This forms the perfect answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what is CMD Let in Azure? This is also one of the most important questions. So guys, please make a mark on this one. The answer to the same question is, a CMD Let is a lightweight command that is utilized as a part of Microsoft PowerShell environment. The CMD Lets are summoned by Windows PowerShell to automate the scripts which are in command line. Windows PowerShell runtime additionally invokes them automatically through Windows PowerShell APIs. I hope so you got your answer for this one. This forms the perfect answer to this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. What is Windows Azure Scheduler? The answer to the same question is Windows Azure Scheduler enables you to invoke activities, for example, calling HTTPS endpoints or presenting a message on storage queue on any schedule. With Scheduler, you make jobs in the cloud that dependably call services both inside and outside of Windows Azure and execute those jobs on demand on a routinely repeating schedule or assign them for a future date. I hope so you got your answer for this question. Now let's move forward and discuss the next question. The next question is, what is Text Analytics API in Azure Machine? And the answer to the same question is, Content Analytics API is a part of Content Examination Web Administration, which worked with the Azure Machine Learning. The API can be utilized to analyze unstructured content for tasks such as sentiment analysis, key phrase extraction. The API restores a numeric score between 0 and 1. Scores near 1 show positive sentiment, while scores near 0 demonstrate the negative sentiment. I hope so you got your answer for this question. Now let's move forward and discuss our final question. And our final question is, what is the Migration Assistant tool in Azure websites? This is one of the most important questions, guys, so please have your mark on this one. Migration Assistant tool will examine our IIS installation and recognize the sites that can be migrated to the cloud, featuring any components which can't be migrated or unsupported on the platform. Once broken down, this tool will likewise create sites and database provided under the given Azure membership. I hope so. This forms the perfect answer to this question. That was all for today's session. Thank you guys for watching this video on Azure interview questions.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat provides Microsoft Azure certification training in partnership with Microsoft, the course link of which is given in the description below.